we resume from where we had stopped in our previous session. That is question 3, Economics, April 2024. Question 3, A Roman 1, explain the term monetary policy. Explain the term monetary policy. Explain the term monetary policy. When you talk about monetary policy, we're basically saying that these are instruments that are used by the government through the central bank to regulate money supply. What are these instruments that are basically used by the government through the central bank to regulate money supply? One of it is the interest rate, the bank rate. How do we use it basically to regulate money supply in the economy? We basically say that when there's a lot of money in circulation, what basically the government through the central bank does is that they raise the level of interest rate, and by raising the interest rate, they ensure that there's not much circulation of money in the economy, and in so doing, they reduce what we call inflation. The second instrument, monetary instrument, policy instrument, we call it open market operation. This is buying and selling of security by the government through the central bank. We also say that, for example, when there's a lot of money in circulation, the government basically will be selling security to the public. And by so doing, what they basically are doing is that they make sure that more money goes to the central bank, and in so doing, they reduce the level of inflation. And when they buy security from the public, they increase deflation. The opposite of reducing inflation, they enhance the opposite of reducing inflation. That is what basically we mean by monetary policy. So we put it down. This refers to the instrument. This refers to the instrument used by the government through the central bank, central bank to regulate money supply. Examples, we say examples includes examples include interest rate, open market operation, cash ratio, etc. Again, just to emphasize for the learners, because that was simply on definition, giving what monetary policy means, an example, just to illustrate one of it, just to emphasize what I'd say. That one of the instruments is a bank rate. How does the government uses the bank rate to control the level of money supply in the economy? I've said when there's inflation, to imply then that there's a lot of money in circulation, the government basically is going to raise the level of interest rate, meaning that not much money is available in the society for circulation. And in so doing, I've said that what it does is that it reduces the supply of money in the economy. The second one, I have said open market operation, buying and selling of securities by the government. And to say that when there's a lot of money in circulation, that is during inflation, the government will sell security to the public. And so doing, they reduce the money that is basically in circulation to the public. That is how we approach that. And very important, you need to also check on other factors like selective credit control as also one factor, reserve requirements as also some of the monetary policies. That is how we go about that very question. We pick it on the next question, that is question 3, A Roman 2. We read the question. Identify 4 objectives of fiscal policy. We put it down. That is 3 Roman A Roman 2. Explain, identify. We say identify 4 objectives. 4 objectives of fiscal policy. 4 objectives of fiscal policy. Very important in answering any question in economics is to understand what we basically mean by what we call fiscal policy. Fiscal policy basically talks about revenue and expenditure. And when you talk about revenue, that touches on taxes and expenditure, how we basically uses the taxes, which is the revenue, and expenditure to control the economy. That is what we mean by the fiscal policy. So key at the back of every learner is to understand that whenever we talk about fiscal policy, we touch on what we call governmental expenditure and revenue stroke the taxes. What are the objectives of fiscal policy? 1 is to achieve desirable price level. 2, we can talk about achieve a desirable consumption level. Number 3, we can talk about raise the employment level. We can use the taxes to raise the employment level. We can also use the taxes and expenditure also to maintain economic stability, So we can put them down. Number 1, we say achieve desirable price level. Number 2, we call it achieve desirable consumption. What we call desirable consumption level. Achieve desirable consumption level. Number 3, we call it maintain. We have it as maintain economic. What we call maintain economic stability. Maintain economic stability. We have 4, raise the employment. Raise the employment level. Then we can have lastly, maybe for the sake of additional, what we call achieve equitable distribution of income. Achieve equitable distribution. Achieve the equitable distribution of income. Achieve the equitable distribution of income. Achieve the equitable distribution of income. That is the last objective. So on the fiscal policy, you need to understand how this fiscal tools work. How does the taxes work to control the economy? How does expenditure, how does the budget work to control the economy? Very important for learners to understand. And that is how we particularly handle that question 3A Roman 2. We'll pick it on the next question, that is question 3 Roman B. We'll read the question. The following information relate to a given economy. We're being told that the marginal propensity to save, MPS, is equals to 0.2. Then autonomous consumption, that is independent of the national income, Y, is 400. So required formulate consumption function, and number 2, determine the change in national income if government expenditure was increased by 50%. We write the question, that is B. So we're being told the following information relates to a given economy. The following information relates to a given economy. So we have 1, that is marginal propensity to save to save is, we put it into bracket, MPS is equals to 0.2. Marginal propensity to save is 0.2. Then we have what we call autonomous consumption. Autonomous consumption that gives us 400. That gives us 400. Then we have required. We start with the required. Required. Roman 1, that is B Roman 1. Formulate consumption function. Formulate consumption function. Formulate consumption function. We pick it. The two consumption function. For us to formulate consumption function, we know that consumption function should be equivalent to, we have A, which is plus B, Y. So B is autonomous, A is autonomous consumption, that is independent of Y. And B is marginal, what you call marginal propensity, what you call the marginal propensity to consume. That is what you call the marginal propensity to consume. So we basically say that MPS, which is the marginal propensity to save, plus the MPC, that is marginal propensity to consume, that should be equivalent to 1. We are given the marginal propensity to save, that is 0.2, plus MPS that we don't know, MPC that we don't know, that is equivalent to 1. So the MPC, the marginal propensity to consume, that will be equivalent to 1 minus 0.2. So we have it as 0.8. So the MPC should be equivalent to 0.8. That is the marginal propensity to consume. Get back just to put it in the question. So consumption function should be equivalent to 400 plus 0.8y. This is what you call the consumption function. This is what you call the consumption function. We pick it on Roman B. We have our Roman B down here. Determine the change. Determine the change. We say determine the change. Determine the change in national income. National income. Determine the change in national income. If government expenditure, if the government expenditure, if the government expenditure was increased by 50%, was increased by 50%. If the government expenditure was basically increased by 50%. We need to understand the concept of multiplier. A multiplier, which is K. What is multiplier? If you understand multiplier, this question would be a little bit much easier for learners to understand. So what is a multiplier? We say is the number of times in which an increase in investment and other exogenous spending should be multiplied to arrive at the change in national income. So multiplier is basically, we call it, refers to the number of times in which an increase in investment or other exogenous variables such as the government expenditure should be multiplied in order to arrive at the change in national income. So we've been asked the change in national income. So what we need to multiply with the exogenous factor which we have as the government expenditure, we need to get the multiplier. We said that multiplier, which we've defined, is equals to 1 over 1 minus MPC. And we say that 1, i.e., 1 minus MPC, that should be equals to MPS. That should be basically be equals to MPS. So we have the multiplier, which is K. Being equal to K is going to be equals to 1 over 1 minus 0.8. That is to say 1 over 0.2. So K should be 5. So what is the change in national income? That should be the multiplier times the exogenous factor. Multipliers. So change in national income, change in national income, change in the national income, change in the national income should be equals to the multiplier, which is 5, times the exogenous factor, which is 50%. So the change should be equals to 250%. The change should basically be equals to 250%. That is how we particularly approach that question 3 Roman B. We pick it on question 3 Roman C. Using appropriate diagram, explain 4 properties of indifference curve. Using appropriate diagram, explain the 4 properties of indifference curve. Using appropriate, what you call appropriate diagram, explain the 4, what you call the 4 properties, of indifference curve. The 4 properties of indifference curve. The 4 properties of indifference curve. So we can start with the first property. We say that the higher, number 1, the higher the indifference curve, the higher the indifference curve, the higher the utility. The higher the indifference curve, the higher the utility. We draw the diagram so that we can depict that in a diagram. The higher the indifference curve, the higher the utility. So IC1, IC2, IC3, IC4. So this is good Y. We call it good Y. We call this one good X. So we're saying that the higher the indifference curve, the higher the utility. IC4, highest level of satisfaction, highest level of satisfaction. Then we have IC1, we call it the lowest level of satisfaction, the lowest level of satisfaction at that very point, the lowest level of satisfaction at that very point. The second property, we say the indifference curve are dense. Indifference curve are dense. Indifference curves are dense. What do you mean by dense? They are everywhere. They are everywhere. They are everywhere. That is what you call dense. They are particularly everywhere. When you call that, they are everywhere. So we draw it so that we depict that. They are everywhere. They are everywhere. We have the diagram as we say that they are everywhere. So we have it here. So this is good X. This is good Y. So we have it. They're everywhere. Indifference curve are basically everywhere. That is IC1, IC2, IC3, IC4, IC5, IC6, IC7. We can have IC8. So indifference curves are basically everywhere. Number 3, we call it they are asymptotic. They are asymptotic. That is to say that they do not touch. They do not touch the axis. They do not touch the axis. When you say they are asymptotic, they never touch the axis. So if you're to draw that, we basically have this at this point. At this point, we have good y, we have good x. So we can see that this IC don't touch the axis. You can see that they never touch the axis. Indifference curve are asymptotic. They do not touch the axis. They do not touch the axis. They never intersect. Lastly, number 4, we say that they do not. Lastly, we say they do not intersect. They do not intersect. They do not intersect. We have our diagram here. Showing that they do not intersect. Intersect. That is number 4. If we had an indifference curve, that is good x, this is good y, showing that they do not intersect. If we had that, they do not cross each other, they do not intersect. If you had that, if you had IC1 and IC2, they do not intersect. We say they do not cross each other. They do not intersect. They do not intersect. They do not intersect. They do not cross one another. But apart from that, we can also talk about what we call they are convex to the origin. They are convex to the origin. They are sloping downwards. They're sloping downwards from left to right. But we also say that they do not cross each other. That's basically implying that it is not possible for IC1 and IC2 to cross each other. So we say the last point, the last property is that they do not intersect. Those are the 4 properties and the ones that we've mentioned of the indifference curve. That is how we approach that very question. The last question in question 3, that is question C, 3C. That marks the end of that question. We'll see one another in the next session.